Welcome to another edition of the Florida Chamber's Bottom Line. I'm Frank Walker, Vice President of Government Affairs here at the Florida Chamber, and joining us today is Representative Jay Fant from Jacksonville. Welcome to the program, Representative Fant.
How are you, Frank?
Doing great. Thank you for joining us today. I want to start off with a little bit of a holistic question, and it's about the mood and the prospects for the rest of the session. We're in the middle of week 2 of our 60-day session. What's the outlook looking like for the next 7 weeks?
We are in week 2 of session, Frank, but we are not in session this week. We are using our time for committee weeks. It appears we're behind, and we have a lot of big issues in front of us. I feel like we've just gotten started. It's really a good time for the business community to really start paying attention, following what we've done so far, but plenty of time to get involved.
Sure. Well, 2 big issues that we saw up in the Insurance and Banking Subcommittee that you sit on yesterday afternoon and evening, in fact, were workers' compensation and then assignment of benefits reform, which we view as a fraud reform effort. Can you recap what happened in committee and where we stand on those 2 critical issues?
Workers' comp, as we all know, is what I refer to as the atomic bomb that went off in all our accounting offices in recent months. The Castellanos case was not friendly to businesses, and it wasn't friendly to injured workers either, Frank. So our biggest obligation in the legislature is to find a way to address this. Now, from my perspective, and I think from the perspective of many businesses, the bill that we've been crafting in the legislature probably does not really meet those needs. I call it workers' comp light, and I've been critical of this effort. It seems to me that if we pass something that is a light version of what really needs to happen, it's certainly not going to help the business community. It's not going to help injured workers. And we will have used up a lot of political capital with little effect. We need to amend that bill, and we tried to in committee and came very close. But leadership has a position on this bill, and they don't want to come off of it. But we're making some ground. I hope businesses will pay close attention to this progress. You also mentioned AOB.
Sure.
Just in this morning's paper, the Wall Street Journal ran a very insightful and I believe accurate article in the nature of assignment of benefit problems here in Florida. And it does emanate with the trial bar. We all have plaintiffs' bar members that we need and use, but for the most part, the excesses of the trial bar create tremendous problems for our businesses. And the assignment of benefit area is one of those areas. It's become a runaway, unregulated area of the law. So we're trying to tackle that too. That legislation is very difficult. And again, the business community will have to pay very close attention to this progress. We've got to get some good outcomes out of it.
For sure, and that's why we set up not only our Workers' Compensation Task Force, but the Consumer Protection Coalition to deal with the assignment of benefits fraud issue. It's interesting, both of those issues really turn on the subject of attorney's fees. And it's an area that the business community finds itself in a very different posture than it has in previous sessions. What else does the business community really need to be on the lookout for? I've seen you be very engaged and active in the space of pushing back against another trial lawyer priority, prejudgment interest, for example, and then of course economic development and diversification efforts. You've been leading the way for us as well.
So your basic question is, what else do we need to look out for? The answer is everything. The trial bar is very politically influential these days. As an example, the head of our insurance and banking committee is a trial lawyer. The head of our civil justice committee that affects all the civil laws that affect us in business and whatnot is a trial lawyer. Very pleasant people, but they do not vote with us. And so in the business community, we have to remember that this is what we get. And it makes our job harder. We have to be more active to get here and pay attention to everything that happens and follow all your communications to be up on the prejudgment interest progress and our opposition to it and similar bills along the way.
And speak to economic development real quick, because we all know that that's a priority of the speakers, but you gave an impassioned defense of job creation and economic diversification efforts on the floor during debate on that bill at the end of last week. Why do you see EFI as important to Florida's future?
Fortunately for our viewers today, we know what business development is. It is a part of our business that drives our success over time. And Florida has determined that as nice as our beaches are, companies just don't come here because we have to help them a little bit. And just like when you hire a new employee, occasionally you have to pay for their moving expenses to make that work. So Enterprise Florida allows the governor and his agency a stipend, if you will, to make that happen. The movement against Enterprise Florida is very hurtful for businesses large and small. Small businesses do feed off the larger businesses that we can bring into the state. So my great concern is as we lose the tax revenue from the larger businesses, the small businesses' success that comes from the being around those larger businesses, the community coffers that get filled, as well as the states, the state becomes a lesser competitor. And while we have a governor who is so adept at business development, why challenge that? So I'm going to continue to be passionate about Enterprise Florida, and we've got a way to go on this.
For sure. Well, we appreciate your leadership on that and all the other issues that we touched on. That's all the time we have for today, but thank you for joining us on the program. And to our viewers, thank you for joining us for another edition of the Florida Chamber's Bottom Line.